Yeah. Awesome. I'm Zach Eriksen. I'll be talking about plugins, my own implementation in Swift, and I'll kind of be talking about generally how plugins work, and how to use them. So what is a plugin? A plugin is just a standalone component. It's isolated on its own. It doesn't communicate to other plugins. It only communicates with something that is using that plugin. It accepts a single input and only mutates a single output. So it can't accept, a few different types, and it can't mutate a few different types. It can only take one and mutate one. And it only works on something that is pluginable. So pluginable is something that accepts a plugin, and plugins can only work on that. So you can't just say an integer is pluginable, because it hasn't conformed to that protocol. So more specifically, a plugin is kind of repeating myself. A plugin has a source object, which is pluginable. It's really the kind of objects that's being mutated, whereas the output is the variable for that source object. So if I had, a URL request, maybe the headers are that output, and we'll kind of see that later. The input is any type that you want to take in that if it gets passed in, then you can act on that input. So any input that I don't conform to or put here, it wouldn't affect this plugin. So let's say this plugin takes an input of an int. If I pass in a double, it's not going to fire this plugin because this plugin only takes in an int. Okay. Also, a main driving factor of this is Swift's writable key paths. We define a writable key path of the source object to the variable that we're mutating. So that's how we can just get the variable that we're mutating without the whole object. So to create a plugin, we have to ask some questions, and mainly it's those kind of source objects, output and input. And the first question is, what is our source object? What are we making this plugin for? Where or is this plugin going to be used? And then also kind of what data are we mutating, aka the output. And then lastly, what input do we need? Do we actually need input, or can we work off of like a void call? If someone just calls this, can we do the action, or do we actually need, that int, that string, or more a specific type? Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So creating an example plugin. Let's say that we have this auth plugin that adds an auth token header to our URL session, or URL request more specifically, sorry. So looking at this, we can kind of see that the plugin URL request is our source object. We'll look at that next. And our output type is the URL request. So we're going to mutate that URL request. And you can see in this example that we have a void input. So it doesn't even matter what you pass into us. If you call with void, then we'll just add that auth header or that auth token. So it's just kind of just works. So to make an object pluginable, it's pretty much a freebie conformance. All you need to do is add an array of plugins, any plugin. And that's all you have to do for making an object pluginable. So what does that mean? I have this plugin URL request that has a URL request, and I added pluginable. All I had to do is add that one line that says plugins, any plugin equals an empty array. I can add plugins by default. I can, add plugins in the initializer, or, I can just register plugins to it later on. Like I said, you can register any plugin to an object that's pluginable, and that's pretty easy. And then also from within that object that is pluginable, you can just say handle, and you can pass it any value. And that will go through all of the plugins that you've registered on this object, and it will only fire the ones that input type matches its input type. So like I said, if I pass an int, only the plugins that accept int will be fired, no other ones. Okay. And looking at this more specifically, if I create a URL request, for example.com, I can register an auth plugin, and that's where that key path is. I just say /.request. I'm making a writable key path, and really a writable key path, just to kind of specify it a little bit more, is literally the path to get to the variable from the source object. So a URL request has like a request that, you know, or I guess, no, sorry. For this object, I'll go back. It has that request. So that variable request is specifically what I'm pointing at right there. And so I can just say URL request.handle. I don't have to pass in anything because like I showed in this very basic example, it just takes void. And then at the end of it, at the last line, I can print out the headers and it has an auth header or an auth token. So not really, but you can kind of imagine. So some examples of this, it's kind of complicated because it's so generic, it's so abstract. But like logging is a pretty good example of it, I feel. Normally we log to the console, right? So for scribe it's a framework that I made that uses plugin, but it also uses Swift log. And Swift log is like kind of Apple's, or it's not kinda, sorry. It is Apple's Swift logging tool. So it's pretty verbose. It's pretty nice. It's used in a lot of servers and a lot of systems like Swift Neo and other things like that. So it's pretty verbose. Scribe uses Swift log by default to log to the console. So you already get that. You already get that benefit of logging. You get the error info, debug, all that. You get some other stuff too that comes with Swift log. So that's great. But like, let's say I wanted to, you know, maybe save the logs to a file or, you know, send the logs to a URL. Well, Scribe comes with plugin support. You can add as many plugins as you want to Scribe. But the default ones that I added were file plugin and URL plugin. So you can just add these to your scribe object, and then it will log to the console, but it will also save to a file. It will do a URL. Maybe you wanted to, you know, make a plugin for a toast, and it would present a specific error or, you know, a specific log message to the user under certain circumstances. Maybe you don't want to do all of them. Maybe you just want to do a, you know, we hit a 500 or a 401 and we want to, you know, bring that to the user and make the user understand it more. You can make a plugin, just put it in there, and then it works. So let's check this out. I got some sample code right here. I'm going to stop sharing really quick. Pardon me. Whoops, I jumped around. Oh, wrong one. Oh, here. Does this count? It's empty. Sorry. Here, I'll just drag this down. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. Technical difficulties of sharing an actual screen. It's not showing it as a screen. Okay, whatever. Hold please. Do you see this? Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. All right, there it is. Yeah. All right. So we have the most basic Swift UI view that you can have. It's a button that prints hello. Pretty awesome. Look at that. Yeah, we got some printing. Let's update this and let's make it use Scribe. And let's make it use some plugins and that stuff and kind of just see the basic stuff that we get. So I just need to import Scribe. I can then create the Scribe object, which then I can use to log events to. So I'll just say Scribe. And all we're going to do is just say, you know, scribe.log, whatever. We're just going to label it something. Then I can change this to just say scribe, whoops, lowercase, sorry. And then now we can kind of see all the stuff that we get from Scribe out of the box. Like I said, we get info, critical, all these kind of different log messages that just come out of the box with Swift log. Or are available in other many logging languages, logging frameworks and stuff. So let's say I have a critical error or a critical, you know, log that I want to say like, and I'll just stick to the good old hello world. So now if I run this, I can see that every time I press it, I get the more specific Swift log console log. So it prints out the time, it says critical, it says the label, and then it prints out the message and says scribe. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You get a little bit better logging, but what's the point of plugins, right? Unless, you know, we don't have to touch this code that we just wrote. We should never touch this. And we should only be able to add plugins. So let's say I wanted to add a plugin to save to a file. So I can just say file plugin. And now we're just going to throw this in. You can say the file name, the path. For this, I'm just going to keep it basic. I'll just say the same exact thing as we did for the label. And now we get this like output formatter. This is more specific just to this plugin. But we can just say that we have some payload, and now we get to format that payload into a string. So let's just say that we have, some string, and we'll just say meetup. And then we'll just say payload dot message, and then let's just put the, I guess, the log level in at the very end of it. So we can say payload dot level. We'll just say raw value in description. Okay. So now let me log something. I'll just rerun it. Now I can run it. And now every single time it's logging to this file. Now, where the hell is this file? That is a really good question. I don't know. I will say that it's probably in something, but let's make it a little bit easier. So I can say the path more specifically. Let me see if I remember my whole thing. Users leave desktop. Does that count? Is that an actual? I think that's an actual thing. We'll see. But now I can press kind of where it goes. Let's see. Did it actually go? Open scribe. No, it didn't. I don't. Well, let me just find it really quick. Oh, it's lowercase. Oh my gosh, I'm such a jabroni. Whatever. All right. Now, hopefully, it'll actually log to this file that we were looking at. Oh, there's scribe.log. Let's open it. Boom. Oh, it's base 64 encoded. That sucks. But hey, you can see it's there. It's there. It's right here. You can, not base 64 encode it, but I just do that for file security and that stuff, depending on if there's sensitive stuff in there. Hopefully you're not logging sensitive, information, but if you are, you have a little protection. But that's cool. We added, a plugin, but let's say that we wanted to add another little plugin or something. So I just say struct some plugin, and this is not going to do anything fancy. So don't ask me to do anything fancy, please. So I can just say plugin, and we'll just be kind of gested into here. I need to make a key path. Oh my gosh, it's there. Oh, sorry, I need to actually import plugin itself. So the nice part about Scribe is it allows for specific plugins, and more specifically, the plugin that I'm using for Scribe is a Scribe plugin. This is just a plugin that's immutable. It doesn't actually change any data. So when I'm defining this, it's going to just have me do a handle function, and it gives me this plugin payload. And the plugin payload's pretty nice because you can specify a type specific to this plugin. But now I can work off of this, and I don't need the scribe. But I can just print. Maybe I just want to print, and I just print the level or something like that. You can do like simple stuff like that. I'm not going to do anything fancy, but now I can add this plugin because I just created it, and I can say some plugin. Okay, well, that was easy. Now let me just print some more. And now we're printing out the critical level. Nothing too fancy there. But as you can see, you can just quickly add in more plugins, and all of them will work. As I said on the very first slide, they're all in isolation. So they'll all kind of just go in order. And so maybe they are mutating the same thing. They won't mutate it at the same time and cause a crash. And also they come with async throws. So you could, fetch from a server or do something more fancy. But that's left up to you, and it's left up to be super generic. And like I said, this uses a scribe plugin, but at the end of the day, you don't have to do that. You can, make your own plugin. So if I were just to copy this and create some other plugin, you can kind of see how similar these are. A scribe plugin is just immutable. So if we look at that really quick, it's just a mutable plugin. That's it. So when it gets to this handle function, it doesn't have any output. But now let's say plugin. I'm going to get rid of all this. Now we just need to write the key path. So what's our object to what? Well, it'd be scribe. And what output? Well, scribe doesn't actually have any kind of output. I guess we could, mess with the plugins. So let's say we wanted to go to an array of plugins. Like, what about if we made a plugin to delete plugins? That sounds stupid. Let's do that. Now I just need to define a handle function, and that will just use our input and output we described. The only thing we need to actually give some information to is input, because it doesn't know that. It knows output because we're doing the array right here, it should infer that at least. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you, Xcode. An actual good error. Yeah, I'll work on any plugin. So we'll just say whatever. That's fine. I'm going to do output dot remove at value. Okay. So now I have a stupid plugin. Let's do this. I'm gonna put this first because the order is kind of weird. So some other plugin. Now we have to give it a key path, and I can just do the slash dot, and it Swift, Xcode, whatever you want to call it, will infer the key paths that I can use off this object. And specifically, I said one that's an any plugin, so I'm going to just say plugins. You can't really say anything else because none of these are plugins, or they don't match the type simply. So I'll just say plugins. There we go. Okay, cool. So now when I do this, let me make another button to kind of test this. Because now I need to call scribe handle something to actually fire the plugin, because basically scribe just works off of this log, this payload, and everything kind of works like that. But if I'm making a new plugin, I have to actually handle that or fire the handle. So I can say scribe lowercase handle. We can just say handle, and I'm going to delete 2. So 0, 1, 2. Right. So I'll just pass in 2. This will actually need to be like a task because it's async await. I think I do need the try. We'll just force try that. Whatever. That's fine. So delete. So now we can print, and we still get this critical, but I would assume when I press delete, and I have not tested this, so if this breaks, it's not my fault. Okay, yeah, it works. So when I press delete, it will delete the second or the number 2 index of that plugin array. And so now we've deleted this and we've removed this plugin out of here. Pretty useless, I'd say. You know, maybe some use, but just kind of showing the functionality of this. And if I press it again, the app will crash. Yes. And that's because I didn't check the bounds. You know, you got to do your own checks in here. So I would be like guard output dot count is less than value. And so now it won't crash. It'll just, not do anything. So now I can print, I get critical, and I can click delete as much as I want, and it'll only delete. Oh, shit. It showed the other one. What the? Oh, I have it the other way, I think. Value is greater than, whatever. I'm not going to do this over. No, I didn't prepare for that. I just got done with work. I'm not going to do Boolean conditions, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'm at time. I'll go back to my very lovely slide, which will just say one thing. Questions?
Again, I have questions, but I don't know if they're of use to everyone else, so I can wait.
Well, go ahead then.
All right. Well, essentially, like my challenge is getting to the point where I'm understanding where these definitions are coming from. So plugin is a like Swift class that's defined and you're importing in from somewhere, or I wasn't even sure where Scribe was coming from. So like if we go to your code base and we look at the declaration for the plugin class or interface or protocol or whatever it is, like where is that coming from? Because I'm just like trying to follow along and find the documentation for, Apple's definition of this class or interface or whatever, and I'm coming up with like package plugins, and is that synonymous or is that just its own thing? And so I'm just trying to like follow along.
I should have called that out. I had someone else be confused. This is not a Swift package manager plugin. This is purely a plugin for the Swift language meant to be used anywhere in Swift. So specifically, it's my framework or project package. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. But then Scribe just uses plugin. So if you go to package.swift, you can see that it's using the Swift log, like I said, but then it's also using this plugin package.
Okay, so you've written the plugin protocol or whatever.
Yeah. let's look at that really
And
quick
then
because
we would
it
just
is really
import
small.
your, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm following along. Okay, you've written the protocol. We would import your protocol into our project,
Mhm.
and then okay, and
Yeah.
that's where everything. Okay, that's why I'm not finding it online because it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, sorry. If you look at plugin architecture, that'll be more kind of the thing I'm talking about
Okay.
composability and extendability through
Okay.
plugins
Cool.
that can be brought
Okay.
in.
Cool. Cool. So reusable like code components, basically, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's like okay. All right. Cool. All right.
Any other questions? All right, cool.
That was interesting. Thanks, Zach.
No problem.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's cool. Write your own shareable protocols.
There was one really cool thing, and you can end the recording if you want. I'll just kind of
Oh, yeah,
talk
yeah.
about it as an
Sure.
example.
I mean,